He knew the names of every man who wanted him dead, but he had never learned the name of the woman who quietly kept his world together. Vincent Moretti stopped walking. The corridor of St. Augustine Medical Center stretched ahead of him in cold fluorescent light, polished floors reflecting the black leather shoes of two armed men following several steps behind. The air smelled of antiseptic and something metallic, sterile, unforgiving. Vincent hated hospitals. They reminded powerful men that flesh did not care about money, or reputation, or fear. He had come to the hospital for a private meeting with one of his captains, a man recovering from a bullet wound that officially came from a hunting accident. Vincent had planned to stay 11 minutes. He had already stayed 13. Then he looked through the glass wall of the intensive care unit and forgot where he was going. At first, he did not recognize her. The woman in the bed looked impossibly small beneath the white hospital sheets. Tubes disappeared beneath her gown. Clear medication dripped steadily through in 4-line taped against dark brown skin. A breathing mask covered half her face. Beep, beep, beep. Vincent's eyes narrowed. There was something familiar about her hands. Those hands. He had seen them place a porcelain espresso cup beside his morning newspaper. He had seen them straighten the silverware in his dining room. Once, after a particularly violent meeting, those same hands had silently cleaned 3 drops of blood from the marble floor before the rest of the staff arrived. Vincent stepped closer to the glass. His bodyguard, Anthony, nearly walked into him. "Boss." Vincent didn't answer. The woman shifted weakly beneath the sheets. Her face turned slightly toward the window, and Vincent Moretti froze. Tiana. The name left his mouth before he realized he knew it, or thought he knew it. Tiana Brooks. His maid. The quiet black woman who had worked inside the Moretti estate for almost 2 years. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments below, and if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. Now, back to Tiana. Vincent moved toward the ICU doors. A nurse immediately stepped in front of him. "Sir, you can't go inside." The 2 men behind Vincent stopped. Usually, that was enough. People saw the suits, the stillness, the particular way Vincent Moretti looked at someone when he expected obedience. The nurse did not move. "She's in critical condition," she said. Vincent looked through the glass again. Critical. The word felt wrong. Yesterday morning, there had been coffee on his desk. Dark. No sugar. Exactly 180 degrees. He remembered lifting the cup while reading a financial report. He remembered noticing it was perfect. He did not remember noticing the woman who placed it there. What happened to her? The nurse hesitated. "Are you family?" "No, her husband." "No." The questions irritated him for reasons he could not explain. Vincent's jaw tightened. "She works for me." The nurse's expression changed. Not fear. Something worse. Understanding. Oh, one small word. Vincent had heard men beg for their lives without feeling what that single word did to him. When was she admitted? Early this morning. This morning? Yes. Vincent turned toward Anthony. "Why wasn't I told?" Anthony looked genuinely confused. "Boss," she staff. Silence. The monitor continued its steady rhythm behind the glass. Beep, beep, beep. Vincent slowly turned back toward the ICU. She's staff. 2 words. Simple. Logical. The exact words Vincent himself might have used yesterday. But through the glass, Tiana's chest rose beneath a machine's assistance. Yesterday, she had been staff. Today, strangers were keeping her alive. And Vincent Moretti realized something that made his stomach tighten. He knew which wine his enemies preferred. He knew the birthdays of corrupt judges. He knew which police captain had a gambling problem and which senator kept a second apartment downtown. But he did not know if Tiana Brooks had parents. He did not know where she lived. He did not know what made her laugh. He did not even know she was sick. Vincent placed one hand against the cold glass. Inside the room, Tiana did not move. For the first time in years, the most powerful man in Philadelphia stood completely helpless. And somewhere beneath the steady mechanical breathing, beneath the fluorescent lights and the silence of the ICU, judgment had already begun. Vincent Moretti just didn't know it yet. 2 years earlier, Tiana Brooks had entered the Moretti estate through the servant's entrance carrying everything she owned in a faded canvas bag. By sunset, Vincent had already forgotten meeting her. That was how the mansion worked. People arrived. People disappeared. Vincent noticed only when something stopped functioning. Tiana never stopped functioning. Every morning at 5:40, Long before sunlight touched the iron gates, she crossed the silent kitchen and tied a plain white apron around her waist. Her dark hands moved quietly over marble counters, polishing surfaces that already gleamed. At 6:15, Vincent's espresso machine hissed. 1 cup. No sugar. 180 degrees. By 6:20, the coffee waited beside his newspaper. Vincent never thanked her. Tiana never expected him to. "Morning, Mr. Moretti," she would say. Sometimes he nodded. Usually, he kept walking. To Vincent, silence meant efficiency. To Tiana, silence meant survival. She had learned early that wealthy houses had their own weather. Doors slammed without warning. Men entered smiling and left pale. Expensive shoes crossed freshly cleaned floors at midnight, occasionally leaving behind mud. Sometimes blood. Tiana asked no questions. One November evening, Vincent returned with a torn cuff and 3 dark drops staining the white marble behind him. His men hurried toward the study. Tiana stood in the hallway holding fresh towels. Vincent passed her. 10 minutes later, when he came back, the blood was gone. He paused. The marble shone beneath the chandelier. Tiana was kneeling several feet away, scrubbing an invisible mark near the baseboard. Vincent watched her for perhaps 2 seconds. Then his phone rang. He walked away. But Tiana remembered. She remembered everything. She remembered Vincent drank coffee before difficult meetings, but whiskey after them. She knew he hated lavender polish because the smell reminded him of funerals, though he had never told her why. She knew he loosened his left cuff when angry. She knew which nights to leave food warming in the kitchen because he would return too late to ask. Vincent knew none of those things about her. He did not know that Tiana took 2 buses to work. He did not know she sometimes skipped breakfast. He did not know about Marcus. And he certainly did not notice the first time her hand trembled while carrying his coffee. It happened on a Tuesday. The porcelain cup rattled softly against the saucer. Tiana stopped. Her fingers tightened. She waited until the shaking passed. Then she continued walking. "Your coffee, sir." Vincent signed a document without looking up. "Leave it." Tiana placed the cup down. For 1 second, her vision blurred. The dark wood desk stretched sideways. She reached for the edge. Her palm pressed against mahogany. Vincent turned a page. Tiana breathed slowly. 1, 2, 3. The room became steady again. She removed her hand. "Anything else, sir?" "No," she walked out. The door closed. Vincent lifted the espresso. Perfect. In the hallway, Tiana leaned against the wall and covered her mouth with one hand. A cough tore through her chest. She forced it silent. When she pulled her hand away, a small red stain marked the center of her palm. Tiana stared at it. Her eyes did not widen. She did not scream. She simply folded a tissue around her hand, slipped it into her apron pocket, and returned to work. Because fear was expensive. Doctors were expensive. Missing a shift was expensive. And somewhere across the city, her younger brother Marcus was waiting for medication that cost more every month. So Tiana kept moving. Room by room. Floor by floor. Invisible. And upstairs, Vincent Moretti drank the coffee she had carried with shaking hands. He never noticed the cup had almost fallen. He never noticed the woman who nearly fell with it. Not yet. The human body keeps records the mouth is too afraid to confess. Tiana's body had been keeping records for months. By December, the stairs had become her enemy. The Moretti estate had 3 floors, 42 rooms, and an elevator reserved for Vincent and his guests. Staff used the back staircase. Tiana had climbed those steps thousands of times. Now, she counted them. 8, 9, 10. Pause. Breathe. 11. Her fingers tightened around the brass railing. Tiana. She turned quickly. Mrs. Caldwell, the head housekeeper, stood below her holding a basket of folded linens. "You all right?" Tiana smiled. It was a good smile. She had practiced it. Just didn't sleep much. Mrs. Caldwell's eyes narrowed. "You've been saying that for 3 weeks. Then I guess I need better sleep." A small joke. A soft laugh. Concern redirected. Tiana continued upstairs. She waited until the hallway was empty before pressing one hand against her chest. Her heartbeat felt wrong. Too fast. Then too slow. Then fast again. She closed her eyes. Marcus's voice returned from their phone call the night before. "The pharmacy raised the price again, T. How much?" "Don't worry about it." "Marcus." 460. Tiana had stared at the ceiling of her small apartment after hearing the number. $460. Her own specialist appointment cost $300. She had canceled it before sunrise. Marcus got his medication. Tiana went to work. That was the mathematics of survival. Someone always had to become the smaller number. At noon, she stood alone inside the staff pantry and removed a prescription bottle from her apron. 2 pills remained. The label said 1 tablet daily. Tiana took a butter knife from the drawer. She split 1 pill in half, then split the other. For days, she had turned 2 days into 4. For a moment, she almost laughed. Vincent Moretti could spend $50,000 on a bottle of wine and forget its name before morning. Tiana was performing surgery on a pill to survive until Friday. The pantry door opened. She swept the tablets into her palm. Anthony stood there. Boss needs the blue file from his bedroom. I'll get it. You look pale. Tiana raised an eyebrow. That's impressive. Anthony blinked. She gestured toward her dark skin. It took him a second. Then he laughed. Okay. Fair. Tiana smiled. Another concern redirected. Another person convinced. She climbed the stairs. 8, 9, 10. Breathe. By evening, rain struck the mansion windows in silver sheets. Vincent was meeting 6 men in the dining room. Tiana carried a tray of coffee through the double doors. The conversation stopped. It always stopped when staff entered. She placed the first cup down, then the second. Her hand shook at the third. Coffee spilled across the white tablecloth. Silence. Tiana froze. 1 dark stain spread slowly through expensive linen. A man at the table looked at her with irritation. Vincent looked up. Their eyes met. I'm sorry, sir. Tiana's voice was steady. Her knees were not. For 1 strange second, Vincent studied her. Really studied her. Her face. The tension around her mouth. The faint shine of sweat along her forehead. Tiana felt exposed. Then a phone vibrated. Vincent looked away. Clean it. 2 words. The moment closed. Yes, sir. Tiana bent toward the table. The room tilted violently. She caught herself against a chair. No one noticed. Or perhaps no one wanted to. She cleaned the stain. Replaced the cloth. Finished serving every man at the table. Only then did she reach the pantry. She locked the door, dropped to her knees, and coughed blood into a white towel. For 30 seconds, Tiana Brooks allowed herself to be afraid. Then she folded the towel inward until the red disappeared. She stood, washed her hands, straightened her apron, and went back to work. Because tomorrow morning, Vincent Moretti would want his coffee. And Tiana had convinced herself there would always be a tomorrow. The difference between tragedy and rescue is sometimes 10 minutes. That morning, Vincent Moretti left his estate at 6:47. Tiana collapsed at 6:57. The day had begun like every other. Dark sky, quiet halls, the soft hiss of the espresso machine. Tiana stood alone in the kitchen, one hand gripping the marble counter while the other reached for Vincent's porcelain cup. Her breathing was shallow. The pain had started before dawn. A sharp pressure beneath her ribs. Then heat. Then cold. She had nearly turned around at the bus stop. Nearly called Mrs. Caldwell. Nearly said the words she had avoided for months. I can't come in today. But Marcus's prescription was due Friday. Rent was due Monday. And Tiana had already used her last sick day when Marcus suffered a seizure in October. So she came to work. The machine hissed. Espresso poured into white porcelain. Tiana stared at the dark liquid. 180 degrees. No sugar. Perfect. Upstairs, footsteps crossed the main hall. Vincent appeared in the kitchen doorway wearing a charcoal suit. He was fastening his watch. Tiana straightened immediately. Good morning, sir. Vincent glanced toward the cup. Morning. 1 word. But Tiana noticed. He usually said nothing. She pushed the saucer toward him. Vincent picked it up. His phone rang. Yes. His expression hardened. He turned away. We'll discuss it in the car. Vincent walked out. The front doors closed minutes later. Outside, black vehicles moved through the iron gates. Tiana remained standing in the kitchen. She listened until the engines disappeared. Then her knees buckled. Her hand struck the counter. The porcelain cup beside her fell first. It hit the marble. Crack. White pieces scattered across the floor. Tiana looked down at them. For some reason, she thought of Vincent. He hated chipped cups. She bent to pick up the pieces. That was when the pain exploded. Tiana gasped. Her body folded. One hand pressed against her chest. The other slid through spilled coffee. Tiana. Mrs. Caldwell's voice came from the hallway. Tiana tried to answer. Nothing came out. Her vision narrowed. The chandelier above the kitchen became a circle of white light. Tiana. Footsteps. Fast. Mrs. Caldwell dropped beside her. Oh God. Tiana's lips moved. What? Mrs. Caldwell leaned closer. Marcus. What about Marcus? Don't. Tiana struggled for air. Don't call him. Tiana, stay with me. He'll worry. Even then, even with her body shutting down against cold marble, she was protecting someone else. Mrs. Caldwell shouted for help. Anthony ran into the kitchen. For 1 second, the large man simply froze. He had seen gunshot wounds, broken bones, men bleeding in alleys. But Tiana Brooks had always been standing. Seeing her on the floor felt unnatural. Call 911. The mansion erupted. Doors opened. Staff gathered. Someone brought towels. Someone moved the broken porcelain. Anthony knelt beside Tiana. Hey, remember the pale joke? Her eyes barely opened. Bad joke, she whispered. Anthony swallowed. Yeah, terrible. You can insult me later. Sirens approached. Red light flashed across the mansion windows. Paramedics rushed through rooms Tiana had polished for 2 years. They cut open the sleeve of her uniform, attached wires, called out numbers no one liked. Then they lifted her onto a stretcher. As they passed through the kitchen, Tiana's hand moved weakly. Her eyes found the broken cup. Coffee. Mrs. Caldwell walked beside her. Forget the coffee. Mr. Moretti, he'll survive. Tiana's eyes closed. The ambulance doors slammed. At 7:16, the vehicle disappeared beyond the iron gates. At 7:24, someone swept the final piece of porcelain from the marble floor. And across Philadelphia, Vincent Moretti sat in the back of a black sedan, reading messages about money, territory, and men who wanted him dead. His phone never rang about Tiana, because everyone assumed the same thing. She was staff. 10 minutes earlier, she had made his coffee. Now, machines were preparing to breathe for her. And Vincent Moretti had no idea he had already walked past his last chance to notice. Sometimes the cruelest judgment is not an accusation. It is a question you cannot answer. Why didn't she tell me? Vincent stood outside the ICU with both hands inside the pockets of his black coat. The nurse looked at him. Her name badge read Elena Ramirez. She had worked 12-hour shifts for 17 years. She had seen wealthy families argue over inheritance while their fathers died. She had seen poor mothers sleep upright beside hospital beds because they could not afford another night away from work. Men like Vincent did not impress her. She was sick for a long time, Elena said. How long? Months, most likely. Vincent's jaw tightened. That's impossible. Elena said nothing. I saw her yesterday. Yes. She was working. Yes. Vincent looked through the glass. Tiana lay motionless beneath white sheets. The ventilator released a quiet mechanical breath. Then another. Vincent turned back. If she was that sick, why was she working? Elena's eyes held his. People work sick every day. Not in my house. The words came quickly. Certain. Almost offended. Elena tilted her head. Did you ask her? Vincent froze. The corridor seemed to become quieter. No, did anyone? Vincent looked toward Anthony. Anthony lowered his eyes. Vincent turned back to the glass. I would have paid for treatment. I believe you. The answer surprised him. Elena stepped beside Vincent. But she would have needed to believe that too. Vincent stared at Tiana. She should have told me. Elena was silent for several seconds. Then she spoke. Maybe she didn't think you'd notice. Vincent did not move. The sentence entered him quietly. No threat. No raised voice. No accusation. Yet something inside him shifted. Maybe she didn't think you'd notice. He remembered the coffee. Perfect every morning. He remembered the spilled cup at dinner. Her sweating forehead. The way she had gripped the chair. Clean it. That was what he had said. 2 words. Vincent's mouth became dry. When did she collapse? Just before 7. What time? Elena checked the chart. Emergency call was logged at 6:59. Vincent looked at Anthony. What time did we leave? Anthony hesitated. 6:47. 12 minutes. Vincent turned toward the window. For years, 12 minutes had meant nothing to him. He had made men wait hours. Canceled meetings while planes sat on runways. Stopped entire shipments because he disliked a number in a contract. But now 12 minutes stood between him and a kitchen floor. Between a living woman and a body collapsing alone. What exactly is wrong with her? Elena's expression softened. Her heart is under severe strain. There are complications. Her doctors are still running tests. Will she live? Elena did not answer immediately. Vincent hated hesitation. In his world, hesitation meant weakness. Here, it meant truth. We're doing everything we can. Vincent's eyes hardened. That's not what I asked. I know. Silence. The ventilator breathed. Vincent reached inside his coat and removed his phone. Anthony. Yes, boss. Find the best cardiologist in the country. Elena looked at him. And get him here. Boss, that could. I didn't ask what it costs. Anthony nodded and walked away. Vincent remained by the glass. Elena studied him. You think money will make this easier? Vincent did not look at her. Money makes everything easier. No, Elena's voice was quiet. Sometimes it only lets you see how helpless you really are. Vincent turned. But she was already walking toward the nurse's station. He looked back at Tiana. For the first time, he noticed her hair was braided close to her scalp. He wondered if she always wore it that way. He wondered how old she was. He wondered who Marcus was. Questions. So many questions. All arriving after the woman who could answer them had been silenced by a machine. Vincent placed his palm against the glass. Cold. On the other side, Tiana did not move. Maybe she didn't think you'd notice. Vincent lowered his head. And for the first time in his life, Vincent Moretti understood what it felt like to be judged by someone who had never said a word. There are rooms in every mansion the owner never enters. At 3:17 in the morning, Vincent Moretti entered one. The staff corridor was narrow. No marble. No chandeliers. Just gray walls, fluorescent lights, and a row of dented metal lockers. Vincent stood beneath the buzzing light in the same black suit he had worn at the hospital. He had not gone home to sleep. He had come home to look. Mrs. Caldwell waited near the doorway. Which one is hers? She pointed. 27. Vincent walked toward it. A small white label had been taped to the door. Tiana Brooks. The letters were written in black marker. Vincent stared at the name. 2 years beneath his roof. And her name had lived on a piece of tape in a hallway he had never seen. Open it. Mrs. Caldwell hesitated. Mr. Moretti, that's her private. Open it. His voice was hard. The old voice. The one that ended conversations. Mrs. Caldwell removed a master key. The lock clicked. Vincent opened the metal door. He expected nothing. Perhaps a spare uniform. Cleaning gloves. Personal items. Instead, he found a life compressed into 18 inches of steel. A pair of worn sneakers sat at the bottom. The soles were nearly smooth. Above them rested a folded cardigan, 3 bus schedules, and a plastic container filled with crackers. Vincent picked up the container. Her lunch. Mrs. Caldwell looked away. Sometimes. Vincent slowly returned it. A photograph was taped inside the locker. Tiana stood beside a young black man in a wheelchair. Both were laughing. Not smiling. Laughing. Vincent had never seen her face like that. Marcus, he said. Mrs. Caldwell nodded. Her brother. Vincent studied the photograph. How old? 24, I think. You think? Mrs. Caldwell's eyes met his. We don't ask many questions here. The words landed softly. Vincent looked away. Beneath the photograph sat a brown envelope. He opened it. Hospital bills. Prescription receipts. Late notices. A specialist appointment. Cancelled. Another appointment. Cancelled. A third. Cancelled. Vincent's fingers stopped. Why? Mrs. Caldwell said nothing. Then he found the notebook. Small. Blue. The cover bent from use. Vincent opened it. The handwriting was neat. Rent. 1,240. Marcus Medicine. 460. Bus. 112. Food. 180. Electric. 96. Vincent turned the page. The same list. Different month. Then another. And another. At the bottom of each page, Tiana had written one final expense. My treatment, later. Vincent stared. Later. He turned the page. My treatment, later. Another. Later. Again. Later. Vincent closed the notebook. Then opened it again. As if the words might change. They did not. How much do I pay her? Mrs. Caldwell answered. Vincent looked at the bills. Then at the worn shoes. Then at the crackers. He thought about the wine cellar beneath the east wing. 400 bottles. Some worth more than Tiana earned in a year. He thought about the cuff links on his wrists. Platinum. A gift he had forgotten receiving. He removed one. Placed it in his palm. For the first time, it looked ridiculous. Did she ever ask for money? No, a raise. No, in advance. Never. Vincent's voice became quieter. Why? Mrs. Caldwell looked at Tiana's photograph. Maybe dignity was the last thing she could afford to keep. Silence. The fluorescent light buzzed overhead. Vincent looked down at the notebook. My treatment, later. He imagined Tiana splitting pills with a kitchen knife. He imagined her climbing the back stairs. He imagined the coffee spilling across white linen. Clean it. His own voice returned. Cold. Careless. Vincent gripped the notebook. Men had called him cruel before. Enemies. Police. Priests. Their judgment had never mattered. But standing in front of Locker 27, Vincent Moretti finally saw evidence against himself. Not in blood. Not in bullets. In bus schedules. Crackers. Canceled appointments. And one word written again and again by a woman he had failed to see. Later, Vincent closed the locker. But he kept the notebook. At 4:11 in the morning, the most feared man in Philadelphia walked back toward his car carrying a small blue book against his chest. And for the first time, he understood. Tiana had not chosen work over her life. She had simply lived in a world where survival kept sending her to the end of her own list. Power is loud when men are afraid of losing it. But helplessness makes even the most powerful man quiet. Vincent Moretti sat outside the ICU at 2:13 the following morning. Same black suit. Same cold corridor. Same blue notebook resting in his hands. He had canceled 3 meetings. One involved a shipping contract worth $8 million. Another involved 2 men who had threatened to move against Moretti territory. The third involved a city official who never liked waiting. Vincent made all of them wait. His phone vibrated. Anthony. Vincent declined the call. It rang again. Declined. A third time. Vincent switched the phone off. Across the hallway, Elena watched from the nurse's station. You know, she said, most people use those chairs for sitting. Vincent looked down. He had been standing beside the same chair for nearly 40 minutes. Slowly he sat. The blue notebook remained in his hand. How is she? Stable. You said that 2 hours ago. Because she's still stable. Is that good? Elena studied him. For tonight, yes. Vincent nodded. He hated answers measured one night at a time. In his world, plans stretched across years. Routes. Businesses. Alliances. But the ICU had reduced the future to hours. At 2:41, a doctor entered Tiana's room. Vincent stood immediately. At 2:43, a machine alarmed. He stepped toward the glass. Nurses moved quickly. Vincent's hand tightened around the notebook. What happened? Elena walked past him. Stay here. The doors closed. Vincent stared through the glass. He could not hear the words inside. Only see movement. Gloves. Wires. Hands. Tiana's body, almost disappearing beneath strangers, trying to keep her alive. Vincent Moretti had ordered men dragged from cars. He had watched enemies kneel. He had stood 3 feet from gunfire without blinking. Now, separated from Tiana by a sheet of glass, he could barely breathe. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. The alarm stopped. Elena returned. Vincent searched her face. She stabilized. His shoulders dropped. Only slightly. But Elena noticed. She opened her eyes. Vincent froze. When? About a minute ago. Can I see her? Briefly. The ICU doors opened. Vincent entered alone. The room was colder than he expected. Tiana looked smaller up close. Her dark skin had lost its warmth. Her lips were dry. A thin tube ran beneath her nose. Vincent approached the bed. For the first time in 2 years, he did not know what to say to his maid. Tiana. Her eyelids moved. Slowly, she looked toward him. Confusion crossed her face. Then recognition. Mister, don't talk. Tiana ignored him. Her voice was barely air. Coffee. Vincent leaned closer. What? Your coffee? Her eyes struggled to remain open. I dropped. Vincent stared at her. Tiana Brooks had almost died. And she was apologizing for a cup. Something tightened behind his ribs. The coffee doesn't matter. Tiana blinked. Perhaps she had never heard him say those words. Vincent placed the blue notebook on the chair beside him. You hear me? Her eyes closed. The coffee doesn't matter. A tear slipped from the corner of Tiana's eye. Vincent turned his face away. Too late. He had faced armed men without shame. But he could not let a dying woman see his eyes turn red. Behind him, Tiana whispered. Marcus, I know. Her eyes opened again. Vincent looked at her. I know who Marcus is. For 1 second, fear entered her face. My locker. Vincent said nothing. Tiana understood. Her eyes closed. I'm sorry. Vincent looked down at the woman who had written her own life beneath the word later. No, his voice cracked. Just once. You don't apologize to me. The room went silent. The monitor continued its steady rhythm. Beep, beep, beep. Vincent pulled the chair closer and sat beside her bed. Outside, men waited for orders. Money waited to be moved. Enemies waited for weakness. Vincent Moretti stayed exactly where he was. Because for the first time in his life, the most important thing he could do was nothing. Nothing but sit. Nothing but wait. Nothing but finally notice. The first question Vincent Moretti asked Tiana Brooks as a human being came 2 years after she began working for him. It was 5 words. What do you need, Tiana? She stared at him. 3 days had passed since she opened her eyes in the ICU. The ventilator was gone. Morning light entered through half-closed blinds, laying pale stripes across the hospital blanket. Vincent sat beside the bed. No guards. No phone. No blue notebook. Just Vincent. Tiana looked uncomfortable. Not from pain. From the question. I don't understand. Vincent leaned forward. What do you need? Tiana's eyes moved toward the window. Mr. Moretti, I appreciate what you've done. That wasn't my question. Her shoulders tightened. The old Vincent was still inside his voice. Commanding. Impatient. He heard it too. Vincent leaned back. His tone softened. I'm asking because I don't know. Tiana looked at him again. That sentence surprised her more than the question. Vincent Moretti did not say, I don't know. Men around him were paid to make sure he never had to. I can pay every hospital bill, he said. Marcus's medication. Your apartment. Whatever treatment you need. Tiana remained silent. Vincent waited. Then she spoke. You think money is the answer. It usually is. A faint smile touched her mouth. That's because you've always had enough of it. Vincent froze. Most men would have regretted those words immediately. Tiana simply watched him. Her eyes steady. Vincent nodded once. Fair. Tiana looked down at her hands. Dark fingers resting against white sheets. When I woke up, she said, the first thing I thought about was my job. Vincent's brow tightened. Why? Because I missed work. You almost died. I know. Then why would you think about work? Tiana's eyes lifted. Because almost dying doesn't stop rent from being due. Silence. Vincent said nothing. Tiana continued. If I lose 1 paycheck, I choose what doesn't get paid. If I lose 2, Marcus misses medicine. If I get sick, she stopped. Vincent waited. If I get sick, everything falls apart. The monitor beside her continued its quiet rhythm. Vincent remembered the notebook. My treatment, later. What do you need? He asked again. This time, Tiana understood. Her eyes filled. Not dramatically. No sob. Just tears gathering slowly along her lower lashes. I need to stop being afraid that one sick day will destroy my life. Vincent went still. There it was. Not a mansion. Not jewelry. Not a check. Safety. Tiana Brooks had spent 2 years inside a house protected by iron gates, cameras, armed guards, and bulletproof vehicles. Yet she had never felt safe. Vincent looked toward the floor. For years, he believed protection meant stopping bullets, finding enemies, building higher walls. He had never considered the terror of an unpaid bill, the fear of a missed shift, the quiet panic of a prescription bottle with 2 pills left. Vincent stood. Tiana's expression changed. Mr. Moretti? He walked toward the window. What if no one who works for me ever had to make that choice again? Tiana stared at him. Vincent turned. Paid medical leave. Health coverage. Emergency funds. Her eyes narrowed. For me? No, Vincent paused. For everyone. The room went silent. Tiana looked at him as if seeing him for the first time. Vincent understood the feeling. He had been looking at her the same way for days. You don't have to do that, she whispered. Vincent shook his head. No. He looked at the woman he had passed hundreds of times without seeing. I should have done it before you had to almost die for me to notice. Tiana's eyes closed. One tear crossed her cheek. Vincent did not look away. This time he noticed. And somewhere between a hospital bed and 5 simple words, Vincent Moretti finally understood something money had never taught him. Power could force people to obey. Fear could make them silent. But respect began with a question, and the humility to wait for the answer. 3 months later, Tiana Brooks walked back into the Moretti estate through the front door. Not the servant's entrance. The front door. She stopped beneath the chandelier. For 2 years, she had polished the marble beneath her feet before sunrise. Now, morning light poured through the tall windows, warm and golden, and Tiana stood without an apron. A navy blue suit replaced her maid's uniform. Her braids rested neatly against her shoulders. A small scar remained near her collarbone, proof that the body remembered. But Tiana was standing. Mrs. Caldwell saw her first. The older woman covered her mouth. Tiana. Within seconds, the hallway filled. Kitchen staff, drivers, housekeepers. Even Anthony appeared from the security room. He looked at Tiana. You still owe me an insult. Tiana smiled. You're still pale. Anthony laughed first. Then everyone did. The sound moved through the mansion. Real laughter. Vincent heard it from his study. He stepped into the hallway. The room became quiet. Old habits. Tiana looked toward him. Vincent wore a black suit. White shirt. No tie. For several seconds, neither spoke. Then Vincent nodded toward the kitchen. Come with me. Tiana raised an eyebrow. That's how you welcome people back? Anthony looked at the floor, hiding a smile. Vincent almost smiled too. Please. The word shocked the hallway more than gunfire could have. Tiana followed him. The kitchen looked different. Not physically. Same marble. Same steel. Same windows. But on the wall near the staff entrance hung a framed notice. Paid medical leave. Full health coverage. Emergency assistance fund. No employee will be penalized for seeking medical care. Tiana stopped. Her eyes moved slowly across the words. Vincent stood behind her. It started last month. For everyone. Everyone. Tiana looked at him. Vincent nodded. And the legal businesses too. How many employees? 412. Tiana stared at the notice again. 412 people. 412 families. 412 lives where one sick day might no longer mean disaster. Vincent walked toward the counter. 2 porcelain cups waited beside the espresso machine. Tiana frowned. What are you doing? Making coffee. She watched him press the wrong button. The machine hissed violently. Vincent stepped back. Tiana covered her mouth. Don't what? Laugh. She failed. The sound escaped. Warm. Uncontrolled. The same laugh Vincent had seen in the photograph inside locker 27. He stared at her. Tiana noticed. What? Nothing. Vincent tried again. The first espresso was too dark. Tiana tasted it. Her face tightened. This could wake the dead. Vincent poured it away. The second was worse. The third was acceptable. Vincent placed the cup in front of her. Sit. Tiana looked at the chair. Then at him. For 2 years, she had stood while Vincent drank coffee. Always nearby. Never beside him. That's an order? She asked. Vincent's eyes held hers. No, he pulled out the chair. It's respect. The kitchen went quiet. Tiana slowly sat. Vincent took the chair across from her. For a moment, neither spoke. Morning light moved across the marble floor. The same floor where porcelain had shattered. The same floor where Tiana's body had fallen. Now, 2 cups rested on the table. One in front of a white Mafia boss who once believed power meant being feared. The other in front of a black woman he had once failed to see. Tiana lifted her cup. Vincent lifted his. She took a sip. Still too bitter. Vincent nodded. I'll learn. Tiana smiled. And perhaps that was the greatest change of all. Not the money. Not the hospital bills. Not even the 412 employees whose lives had changed because one woman nearly lost hers. It was a powerful man finally admitting there were things he needed to learn. Outside, the iron gates remained. The guards remained. The city still whispered Vincent Moretti's name with fear. But inside that kitchen, fear had no seat at the table. Only 2 people. 2 cups of imperfect coffee. And the quiet understanding that dignity begins the moment we truly see another human being. And that day, the world remembered what dignity looks like.